Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. Rosemary Rulka joining us here, the founder of RC Rulka HR Consulting. She's from Goodyear, Arizona, and helping so many and serving a lot of small businesses to start, and of course, people everywhere. And we want to welcome you to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, rulkaconsulting.com, is that the website?
Yes.
RULKA consulting.com. And we're here talking today about all the types of HR solutions you provide. First and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm actually a native of Michigan.
Oh.
But I spent most of my life in Ohio.
Okay.
And I worked for corporate America for many years and did well with it, but went through two major downsides over the years. And, call it what you want, but you are laid off, you are out of work. So after the second one, my former boss actually encouraged me to start out on my own. She said, you've got a client build up. We're not going to be doing this stuff anymore. So strike out on your own. And by George, that's what I did. And from there, it's just kind of history.
Oh my goodness. So you've seen your own share of struggles and you've made it happen.
I did. And family-wise, well, I'm a widow at this point, and but I have two grown children. My daughter and her family live out here in Arizona, which is why my husband and I moved out here. My son, Christopher, is still living in Ohio, and he's very successful. My daughter owns her own business, and she's successful.
Right. Now, originally you wanted to become a teacher, though, right? Wasn't that the early plan?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, but in a very roundabout way. When I was in school, I admired my teachers. I wanted to be one. I started out at Michigan State University getting my degree, but in my third year, I had just had enough of school. I dropped out and went and took a management training program. And from there, it was kind of, just go from one place to another, get promoted. And then once I was laid off, I saw the layoff coming. So I went back to went to a different school, changed my major, and spent another 3 years part-time doing the undergrad. And then once I was through with that, I immediately enrolled in my master's. Then I got hired by a university and a large staffing firm all at the same time. So it just went from there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here, for joining us. Excited to talk more about your business and generally what you do. I know you wanted to talk a little about the employee handbook, right? What is that exactly?
Yeah, your best friend or a smoking gun. It depends on how it's written. The ones that I've seen that were not done by a professional are pretty bad and leaves the door open to all kinds of potential lawsuits down the road, or they just don't exist. There's bits and pieces of policies scattered here, there, and everywhere. And if somebody asks what the policy is, the owner can't even tell them. They don't even know. So as I say, it can be your very best friend as a defense, a legal defense, but it can also be that smoking gun that convicts you. If you have been doing something wrong, it doesn't matter that you didn't know it was wrong. You did it. So, and there's a lot to it. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point because there is nothing worse than, talking about a handbook per se.
Yeah.
I always tell my clients when I finish one, because they're usually about 60, 70 pages or more, I say, now listen, read this before you go to bed because it will put you to sleep, guaranteed.
Wow. So you're here, your company's helping clients in virtually say every aspect of human resources, right? Including setting up this HR department, auditing the HR function, creating employee files and records. My goodness. There's a lot of work that you can help people with. And let's talk a little bit about it, please. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there really isn't anything in HR that I cannot do because I've simply been at this for so many years. But if it's a new client, they're just getting started, maybe they have 2 or 3 employees. The first thing I want to do is get them set up with the appropriate forms and how to do a new employee, how to bring them on board, so to speak. I'm going to recommend that we do a handbook so that we can head off any possible difficulties with the new employees
Mm-hmm.
asking a bunch of questions that the owner can't answer. So I'm going to recommend that, and normally that's what we're going to do. And then when I do the handbook, I include a lot with that. I'm going to give them all the forms I want them to use. I don't want them going out on the internet and pulling things from here, there, and everywhere. Say, no, let me handle this because I can guarantee they're legal because I do the research for you. So I'm going to do that, make sure that they're set up right, recommend that they don't even keep paper. Let's go electronic. So much easier,
I
so
could
much better.
imagine. When did that, I mean, are companies all electronic at this point, or tell me a little bit about that?
No, they're not all electronic. They're all on the board still, especially your smaller.
Really?
The
Okay.
smaller ones don't even know how to set it up electric.
Okay.
So I can help them with that. Yeah.
Good.
I don't want all this paper floating around. That's just something that's, it can get lost, it can get stolen, who knows. I also help them out with reminding them to do appropriate things like put protection on your computer. You know, they don't even think about that. I've met new people that are starting and they didn't know how to get their federal tax ID number. They didn't know how to register with the state for their taxes, those kinds of things. Well, I had to do all that when I started my business, so it's pretty easy for me to help them out with those kinds of things. Once they're set up, then I might not hear from them for a year, who knows? But once they're my client, they pretty much stay my client. But once they've got everything they need, the basics, it's going to be, can you help me find a new customer service person? Or I've got an employee and I just don't know what to do with them. They don't want to come to work. Those kinds of things. And then we get into, larger things, depending on, what it is. It might be that somebody is complaining about their pay. They don't think that they're being paid fairly. Well, I can show them that they are, or I can
Mm-hmm.
that they're not. Because I have access to a lot of subscriptions and that sort of thing. I use Economic Research Institute for my compensation work. Um, and then if I show them in black and white that they're paid fairly, then many times that's all it takes, and they can, they go back to work. So there's that. And then there's things like keeping up with all the state laws. I do operate in a number of different states, and they're all different. Arizona is very different than California, who is very different than New York, and so on and so forth. So it takes a lot of study, constant study, to keep up with everything that's going on out there. And before I can write a handbook for a new state, I've got to investigate all that.
Wow,
And
I could imagine that. That's a lot of work.
it's a tremendous amount of work that goes into, creating something like a handbook. And what I do typically is I'll write the base handbook for the state. Like I have a big client that has like 89 employees. I am the only HR they have, believe it or not. And what I do for them when I wrote their handbook, I wrote it based on Arizona, but they operate in 15 other states. So I have to produce 15 addenda to
Okay.
cover those other states to make sure that we've got it. So that's what I do. I make sure that they're okay.
Beautiful. My goodness. And you're helping also getting new employees off to a good start, as you say, right?
Yes, let's once we get through the paperwork, I tell the owner, I said the best thing you can do for these folks is give them good solid training on what the job is and what your expectations are. There's just nothing worse for a new person than to be thrown into a situation and have no idea what's expected. The job description isn't intended to be a standard operating procedure. It's just a basic overall of what is entailed in the job, but not how to do it. That's up to the supervisor. It's up to the supervisor to teach the employees how to do the job, what's expected, what a good job looks like, who to go for questions and answers, and quite frankly, what the consequences would be if they do a bad job. But you'd be surprised how often that doesn't happen.
Hmm.
Some people have been
Interesting.
on the job 2 or 3 days, and I may be following up with them for some reason. How you doing? Well, it'd be nice if I knew who my supervisor was. They've never
Mm-hmm.
even been introduced to the supervisor, let alone had any guidance or direction as to what's important and what they're supposed to be doing. That accounts for a lot of turnover. There's an old saying that employees do not leave the job. They leave bad bosses. And I have found that to be true.
Interesting.
If the boss is poor, they don't give direction, they don't do follow-up, they're not there to answer the questions, the employees will leave. And that accounts
Oh,
for a lot of turnover.
interesting. Well, hold on. Just got to point out here all the ways we can contact you if you don't mind.
Sure. First of all, you can contact me on my website because there is a contact us link out there. You go to RULKA consulting.com. Comes right out. And on the first page, it's got a big picture of a chalkboard. There's
Yep.
my throwback being a teacher.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's why I put that there. And then there's a contact us, and all they have to do is fill out their name, telephone number, email, and I will contact them.
Got it.
They can tell me a little bit up front in a few sentences what they're looking for. And there are some things that I do not do. I do not do payroll. I am not an accountant. I don't pretend to be. A lot of folks think that, payroll is HR, but it isn't. It's two different things. And payroll rightly falls under accounting because it's the company's money. And whenever you've got it's a huge accounts payable is what it is if you think in accounting's terms. And no, I don't do payroll. But there are lots of other things that I do. Anything within HR.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. You offer so many different types of services. I'm on your website now looking.
Mhm.
Employee relations issues, there's compensation administration. What else did you want to focus on for us today?
Well, for us today, I'd like to talk to people. If you're a business owner, your employees are the most important part of your business. They really are. They're your asset. They're gonna make or break your business. I've seen cases where a bad boss comes in after having had a good one. The bad one comes in and people have been there for several years, and all of a sudden they're dropping like flies. And it's not because the boss is firing them, they're leaving because of the way they're being treated. You have to be consistent. You can't show favoritism. You have to be fair and you have to respect what every employee does because
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason. The owner wouldn't have had them hired if they didn't have an important job to do. But so many supervisors look down on their employees instead of treating them as the human beings and individuals that they are. And then they wonder why everybody leaves. Well, they left because its supervision is bad. They're
Mm-hmm.
bad supervisors. So owners need to be wary of who they appoint as a supervisor because on defense of the supervisors, many of them have not a clue as to what they're supposed to be doing. They think supervising is yelling at their employees to get busy and do something. No, not even close.
Oh my goodness.
But I run into this all the time. You'd be amazed at supervisors who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They may know their own job really well, but they have no idea how
Aw.
to employees, how to talk to them, how to encourage them, how to praise them when they're doing a good job and correct them, but don't be mean about it. You don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
mean. But they've never been taught to do it. And so this is what happens. That's one thing. The other thing is the importance of getting a handbook done. Like I said, it's your best friend, it's your worst enemy if you've done it.
Isn't that amazing? No,
Yeah.
no, the companies you work for, did you help develop back in the corporate days? Did you help develop these handbooks or were they handed to you and you were like, oh my goodness?
Well, most generally, they will say, "Oh, I've got a handbook," and I'll say, "Well, if you want me to write you a handbook, I don't even want to see what you've got because I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to change it all anyway and make it the way it should be." So, well, can't you just rewrite it? No, I can't because some of these handbooks they were made. It's not only that they have no idea, but there are entire sections that should be in there that are missing. There are things written in there that are illegal and they can't do it that way, but they don't know it. They've used 3 or 4 different font types that, many of them don't even have a table of contents. That's like, oh my God. No, I can't fix it. It's beyond fixing. I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
over. do it right. So, and if you don't like it, okay, that's fine, you know. If you want me to change something, I'll change it, but let me be the one to change it so that we don't get ourselves in trouble. So,
Well, let me also ask you, there's always employee relations issues, right? Tell us a little bit about some of those issues that you've helped with, please.
you know what the number one employee relations issue is? The guys that don't want to come to work. Absenteeism.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I deal with more of that than anything else, but I also deal with things like sexual harassment and bullying and all kinds of bad behavior on the job. But the one that frustrates everybody, I think, the most are people who simply will not come to work. They have all kinds of excuses. There's all kinds of what they think are really good reasons why I can't come to work today.
Mm-hmm.
But in essence, it's just an excuse. And people who are like that are probably beyond help in all honesty. Because what they're doing, they're giving themselves a mini vacation. Think of it that way. You get, let's say that the company says we're going to give you 40 hours of vacation and 40 hours of sick pay. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
My advice on that would be put it in one bucket and give
Mm,
them 8 hours of time off and let them figure out how to use it. Because what's going to happen is if it's a use it or lose it, they're going to take those 40 hours of illness,
yeah.
whether they're sick or not, because they see it as a right, and they don't think of it as something to keep just in case you actually happen to get sick or get in an accident. So they burn through it. You know, some of them, I've seen them do it in January. By the end of January, there's no sick time. And then something happens later on in the year, there's nothing to use. But put it in a bank and use it that way if at all possible. There are a couple states where I would advise you not to do that, but again, it
Mm-hmm.
depends on state law. But that is a big problem. So I'm going to give you a simple step by
Sure.
step. First of all, sit the employee down, point out in the handbook where you have described what constitutes appropriate and inappropriate attendance.
Sure.
Secondly, secondly, show them in black and white how many times they've been late to work, how many days they've taken off this year, and then talk to them about the effect that this has had on other people, how other
Wow.
people covered for them and they had to come in and they had to do extra work and they had to work overtime and all these things because you didn't come into work today. I don't want to hear the excuses. Everybody thinks their excuses are okay, and that means I don't have to come to work if I have a good excuse. No. Then I say, now here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I want you to sit here and in writing, put together a plan for me on how you're going to start coming to work every day. I'm going to give you half an hour to write it. I'm going to leave. You can have some coffee, you can have some water, anything you want to do. But by the end of half an hour, I want you to have on paper exactly what your plan is for how you're going to correct your attendance. Now, you might think that's crazy, but there's a method to my madness here because 99 times out of 100, they will write out
Oh,
something. And no
wow.
matter how stupid you might think it is, you accept it.
Oh, wow.
Accept it. Say, okay, here's your plan. The very next time that they're late to work or they're absent, you go to them and you say, Susie, what went wrong with your plan?
Mm,
But if you tell them how to correct it, then it's your plan that didn't work and it's not my fault.
mm-hmm.
Follow your plan. They'll give you an excuse, and I'll say, well, here's the deal. Your plan didn't work. So I'm going to give you a verbal warning, but I'm going to document it. And I want you to know that you're skating.
Wow.
Make me another plan. So I get a second plan. But I also give them a verbal warning and then I document it because in a court of law, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen.
Got it.
Then they do it again. Okay, now I'm going to give you a written warning. Well, I'm getting serious here, folks. The same thing. We're now on plan number 3.
Okay.
Next time they do it, it's a last chance. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
now that if you pull this again, you're not going to be
Mm-mm.
here. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding around. Give me plan number 3 and make sure you think it's going to work. Because if it doesn't, we're not going to go through this anymore. We're done. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
And all of this is well documented. It'll prevent them from getting unemployment in most states, and it's certainly going to help you stay out of court. You've got now had 3 plans written by the employee. You've had the verbal, you had the written, you had the last chance, and they're just being ornery and not coming to work. This could
Wow.
happen one way or another. Most of them will be gone, I will tell you that. But every now and again, I run into one who just turns it around and they start coming to work and become a good employee because they realize that we're serious about this.
Yeah.
And excuses are just that. They're just an excuse. There you
Well,
go. So I gave you the best advice probably you'll ever get on how to fix
amazing.
the
Well,
problem.
let me ask this. Did you hear recently in the news, was it Barry Sanders was talking the other day about putting into law a 32-hour work week? What do you think would happen would that be better for productivity in businesses or worse? Just
Oh, then
curious.
no, they'll still come at 32. You could make it a 10-hour work week and they still wouldn't come to work.
Interesting.
No, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
All right.
Let the employees and the managers and the owners figure out for themselves what an appropriate work week would be. Because if people want to come to work and they have a good work ethic, they're going to come to work no matter how many hours you tell them it is.
Mm-hmm.
A
So
lot of
true.
auto centers run on 50-hour weeks. They come to work because they're well paid. And
Mm-hmm.
I have customers like that. They don't have turnover problems. And they're working 45, 50 hours a week and they love their jobs. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with whether it's a 4-day work week or a 5-day work week. If people don't want to work, they're not going to come to work and they're still going to have the same excuses. That's what I think.
Well, let me also ask you, I mean, we only have just 3 minutes left in your show, but there's so much with workplace harassment and laws, and there's a whole bunch of training services you could offer as well.
I do. I do. I do sexual harassment training and I include bullying with that because bullying is the worst problem there is out there as far as disrespect and downright meanness, bad behavior in the workplace. It's more bullying than
Mm-hmm.
sexual harassment, but I train on both. And I've seen a difference where I've come in, done the training, talked to people, explained why these things are wrong and the damage it does to other people. And then once that's done and everybody is signed, of course, that they've been there, it happens again, that's going to be a disciplinary problem and it can lead to firing. But they need to be trained first so they know that it isn't just, it's rude, but it isn't just rude. It's bullying. And if it isn't stopped, it will devolve into harassment, and that's a legal issue. So that's how I approach that.
And for those out there listening today, if they do reach out to you, do you offer an initial consultation, like
Yes.
a discovery call? Not sure if we call it that, right?
They actually, it's on my website.
Great.
Sign up for free 15 minute or not, I'm sorry, 30 minutes. I started out in 15 and
Yep.
changed it because I can't even say hello in 15 minutes. So I changed it to a 30-minute free interview. Call me up, talk about your problems, and we'll figure out if it's something that I can do for you or if it isn't.
Perfect.
And
Thank
then
you so much.
you, okay?
No, thank you. We appreciate it. Would you mind sharing how we can contact you one more time?
Sure. You can either call me if you want. Okay, my phone number is 937-470-5790. Contact me on the web, Rulka, Rulka, consulting.com. Either one. And when you
Perfect.
fill out the little tiny form on the web, it sends me an email and then I'll contact you right away.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here and looking forward to the next time we get to connect. Rock Consulting.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. And also, just want to point out if you go to the website, you can find some great blog topics there as well. I was reading and perusing about before. But
Yeah.
remember, business owners beware you say what you don't know about HR can cost you money. So it's important to have someone who's up to date on all these compliance issues and so much more. So thank you for being here as our expert today and at Rulka Consulting. We'll talk soon, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.